Hey guys, what's up? Happy 4th of July. And this, Lonely Wolf, Captain Willi Schultz. I've done a few videos on this series. The collection, I finally got my hands on the collection. Got it in Staten Island at the surviving Jim Hanley's on New Dorp. Great store, lots of trade paperbacks. Right? They know what people are buying, in the comics. But I had gone over this series, of course, if you don't know. It's late 60s, early 70s, a recurring Charlton Comics war character, Willie Schultz, German-American, gets accused of murdering his commanding officer. And in order to just survive, like I said, in the moment, because he can speak German, he pretends to be a German soldier and joins the German army just to not get killed by the Americans. So, and you see the conflicts in the series. Very, very, like, really interesting idea, okay? And, of course, this is the collection of the original series. Of course, I had gone over in the last video about it, that last comic of Willie Schultz chapter, it didn't continue after that. It had been canceled. Franz had an ending in mind. Of course, at this point, Franz is a teenager, and Sam is just starting to become basically one of the legendary, greatest American comic book artists that probably ever existed. So, excuse me. Funny thing about this collection, though, okay, on the back, right? It's a collaboration between Dark Horse and It's Alive. I don't know who It's Alive are, but wait a minute. This was originally this was supposed to be a crowdfunding thing, and I found this out when my oldest friend decided to surprise me. He says, yeah, I gave to a crowdfunder to get a collection of this comic that you liked, that he helped me find some issues of on eBay. I was like, oh, you didn't have to do that. And he's like, nah, it's, needless to say, me, I'm anti-crowdfunding. I don't like it. People that use it, I don't, and you're seeing, not just from something like this, but you're seeing other high quality or high, well-known names who are not producing after getting money for years. But I don't get off on a tangent. The guy must have taken the money and run. My friend, no one who gave to this guy anything. I had to buy this in the store. Took a picture of it, sent it to my friend, and the what the fucks, and I want to kill that dude, came back in his replies in the text. So, but ultimately, my friend was just happy that this came out. And yes, Wayne VanSant, who I go over a lot, drew basically the last chapter of what Willi Franz had intended for this hard luck character. Okay. Now going through here, the preface from Willy, interesting. He's from Park Slope. Right? He grew up in Park Slope when it was the rough time in Park Slope. Now, Park Slope then became a very bougie, gentrified area, which ironically at the turn of the last century, it was that also. Okay, but in most of the 20th century, Park Slope was a rough neighborhood. So a family friend of mine actually went to prison for stabbing 3 guys who were stomping him. It's a whole other story, but here Will Franz grew up there. Okay, German descent, probably not the same German as me, probably the 19th century German, but people made fun of him. Okay, I had an Italian name growing up, but I always told everyone I was half German in Brooklyn, and I got called Nazi all the time. Okay, by the Italian kids. Okay, and also by other kids that lived in Brooklyn. Okay? So, and of course, this thing touched me here. He his 14th birthday, he's got the type 1 diabetes, which is, you just get it. He didn't do anything to get it. Just like my late fiancée, she was born with a heart defect. So this sort of like made him lonely. I could not attend class. I had a few friends to hang out with, but a lot of time to read, research, and study on my own. Okay, it's probably what made him a very mature writer for a young age. Okay, of course, like me and like everyone else in America, right? And on this birthday of America, what it is to be an American, he actually discusses. Well, that's what I want to discuss in this video too. Okay, now I don't sound so funny now, right? You can hear the serious voice now. You should see the expression on my face. But luckily for my late fiancee, she had a real culture and a real large extended family and a real culture to draw back, so she didn't fall into the loneliness and the alienation that he experienced here. So it's interesting that some of his samples were sent to Charlton Comics, and Charlton Comics is interesting. They cover the history of Charlton Comics in this, but more on that later. He basically wrote letters, actually visited with Sam. Sam was impressed by his writing and his art, but sadly he had to stop drawing because the diabetes started affecting his hands. But he was disappointed when he said he wanted to make a story about a German panzer unit on the Russian front. But Sam was like, no way, you can't do that. You can't make a series about, the Germans being the protagonists. And Willi actually got mad. He says, I said, you know what? My teenage frustration. So, I'll make an American character and I'll put him in the German army. Right? Which is funny because he goes, I'll name him August Kruger. And then Sam was like, what the hell kind of name is that? Right? Call him Willy Battle or something. So that's how he told him Willy Schultz, right? Like Sergeant Schultz, right? From the dreadful yet popular Hogan's Heroes. A mysterious show that if this horrific thing was done decades before, why are you making a show about it? Anyway, so now I had a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryan hero with an everyman name, but how to get him into the German army? Certainly not through treason. Leave that to me. Nor did I want him to be a spy or a Volksdeutsche, member of the German ethnicity living outside Germany, right? Vietnam GIs, remember, this is the late 60s, needed to survive their 13-month tour. The moral, emotional turmoil, and injustice in the Vietnam War. Justice, injustice, desperation, survival. I suppose I drew in on myself. And I like how he describes the character, right? Schultz was not a peacenik or a hawk. Right? He was a professional soldier, captain in the newly formed Armor Corps. He's no hero. He killed only what was necessary to survive, for the survival of comrades and loved ones. Schultz believed in duty and country, yet he was betrayed by the very system for which he had risked his life. Right? And the guy that's hunting him down, right? He lost his freedom to an inexplicable injustice and now fought for survival. Right? Yeah. Yeah. Collected here is the third ending of Willi Schultz I'd written, but I feel is the most relevant to the time. Schultz was originally conceived to be published. The most relevant at the time that Schultz was originally conceived and published. What it meant to be an American, right? To be a man. And there he is as a kid. Look, there's a stoop there in Park Slope. Now, of course, I'm going to, me. But anyway, I'm going to leave that for the end here. So Sam actually wrote him. He actually, he drew like art and sent it to Charlton because Charlton just wanted to make comics. They didn't care about the quality. Not saying he's bad, but more on that later. But Sam actually wrote him back. Right? He wrote him back. This is really cool. And the advice Sam gives here is really, actually, this is what I should do. I don't want to go into long lengths with my first letter, but there are a few things you can do if you haven't already. Number one, get a good swipe file together. This is invaluable. A good artist is only as good as his files. Swipe file, what is that? He means references. Right? Keep a sketch pad handy and all times draw, whenever, wherever, whatever you can. Oh, man. I've known about, and I just... date your pics, save them and refer to them later. You see how you've improved. Study them. How can you improve more? What is good about them? What is bad? So on and so forth. And 4, copy. I don't mean trace, but copy. Man, damn, that's good advice, man. Anyway, and so the introduction here, actually, I was like, the introduction was actually, this was really in depth. It was his history of both men, Sam's career in particular, and of course, the history of Charlton Comics. And who wrote this? Once again, Stephen Bissette, okay, one of the artists on Swamp Thing, very good artist. Also, focus. Also, an amazing horror film historian. You've seen his work, and like Monster, and other fanzines and magazines. Okay, Stephen Bissette, and just the history of comics also in general. What a great intro this was. Just talking about the history of war comics, all the sources, all the things. Sam's early art. Sam basically making jet fighters, the Shooting Stars, the first straight wing jet fighters. His wife convincing him to get a job drawing comics. His early art, working at Dell, the amount of how prolific he was, how he always made deadlines. About Charlton Comics itself, how it started out kind of as apparently the guys that did Charlton were sort of shady characters in Connecticut. They published a Circus magazine, right, which was like a music magazine that in the early 80s was covering heavy metal. Circus magazine was how I discovered heavy metal as a kid. But yeah, just going over the history of it and the fact that they made comics because the mechanical presses they had back then, they always had to be operating. Apparently, if they shut down or something, they would break. Ironically, if they weren't being used all the time, they would break down. So they just made comics so that the printers would be rolling non-stop. Only twice a year they would stop them for maintenance for like a day. So that's why they made the comics. So the fact that the quality was not the highest thing also though meant that it gave a lot of guys a good start there. And they mentioned how DC, and I'll say this, the DC editorial staff, and Robert Kanigher was one of them, but they could be kind of assholes. After this guy's let go from Charlton, they mentioned Willy, Sam trying to get Willy in there, and Joe Kubert too, but the editors were just kind of, they were dicks, man. So Mark Millar said that. If you ever see the Mark Millar interview or one of the videos he does on his channel, which I recommend, Mark Millar mentions that when he went to DC for Marvel, they were talking to him like he was a punk. He was almost surprised how rude they were. Very interesting. So, of course, nobody wants to name names, but whatever. But yeah, this was great, man. This was great. And even go, of course, VanSant, right? VanSant started out on the Nom and Savage Tales in '86. So, whatever. It was just, and Sam was alive when they wanted to finish this. But he says, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do it. He knew that he was, near the end of his run. So, I've gone over a lot of stuff. Do I go over this? I've gone over this. I like the coloring they do. It's like the old coloring, but just a little brighter. They're not trying to recolor everything. I had seen most of these by now, but there's about 6 issues I never saw that were pretty big, especially at the end with the partisans. Of course, I told you about the infamous one of the issues I had as a kid. I remember about the kids, right? And the one where they're gonna blast the kids, and of course, the kids we are German Soldaten, we are not kids. And I remember this. You're not old enough to fully understand the real meaning at all costs. To you, it's merely a dramatic phrase ignorantly used to display your unreasoning hatred and defiance. Oh, American. My father died at Stalingrad. My 2 brothers were killed in Africa, and I lost my mother and sisters in a Berlin air raid. I am the only member of my family left, so don't tell me that I'm too young to understand the meaning of victory at all costs. Whoa, he shut you up, huh? Of course, this, it's a Willie Schultz story. He's going to try to minimize casualties. He's going to try to save, everyone involved, and it's not going to work. Right? Before he died, I promised my father I'd win an Iron Cross for killing some Americans to avenge my mother and sisters. I promised my father I'd just come home alive. You see, Captain, I have no home left to go back to. Yeah, he's right, Willie. Anyway, I don't want to go over the new stuff, obviously. I want you to get this, but it's very interesting how it ends. And it doesn't, there's a happy ending. I don't want to spoil it. I thought the ending was very happy. Of course, everyone in the partisan thing dies. And the fact that Willy, he's gonna get away, but he makes a mistake. Anyway, I don't want to give away what happens, but they never catch him, right? The country he fought for that always wanted to kill him, right? And that's now killing all of us, metaphorically speaking. Makes you wonder. Maybe you should have a hero that wasn't so loyal. Maybe he joined the other side. Who's gonna make that comic?